When it comes to North American gamers such as myself, Final Fantasy V was known as the one that got away, at least for a long time. First released on the Super Famicom in Japan, it never crossed the Pacific Ocean until Final Fantasy Anthology in 1999. And even though this made a lot of RPG fans happy at the time, a lot of them also missed out on it entirely. Final Fantasy V has become well known for its memorable characters, addicting job system, and fantastic musical soundtrack, but the most redeeming aspect was likely its story. So in this video, I'll do a complete chronological storyline explanation for the entirety of the game, using official footage and artwork. Please make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, hit the bell below, and let me know what your favorite memory of Final Fantasy V is in the comments below. And now, let's get into the tale. At Tycoon Castle, the wind has stopped. Princess Lenna is alarmed, but the king tells her to protect the castle while he checks on the nearby crystal. He flies off to the wind shrine on the wind drake Hiryu. On a ship, the pirate Ferris also notices the wind has stopped, as does the old man Galuf from inside a meteorite. As King Tycoon approaches the wind crystal, it shatters into pieces and the earth begins to shake. Meanwhile, the young traveler Bart sits near a campfire with Boko, his chocobo. A meteorite falls from the sky just then and crashes nearby. He heads to the impact site where he finds Princess Lenna, who's being attacked by goblins after leaving Tycoon Castle. Bart steps in to save the day, and Lenna thanks him for helping her. Just then, the two hear a cry for help, and near the meteorite they find an old man. Unfortunately, he can't remember anything about his past other than that his name is Galuf. Lenna says she must head to the Wind Shrine, and Galuf senses that's where he was headed as well, so he joins her. Bart has no interest in joining them, so he and Boko leave. However, aftershocks from the meteorite nearly swallow Lenna and Galuf into the earth, but Bartz and Boko swoop in to save them in the nick of time. This time, Bartz agrees to accompany them to the Wind Shrine, saying his dad always wanted him to travel the world. They step into a cave created by the meteorite, and near the exit, they see a ship sail into the nearby bay despite the lack of wind. It turns out they've stumbled upon the pirates' hideout. Instead of asking the pirates for a ride to the Wind Shrine, they decide to sneak on board the ship and steal it instead. They take the ship's wheel but can't get it to budge at all. But just then, the pirate Captain Ferris catches them in the act. Lenna apologizes and reveals she's the princess of Tycoon Castle, shocking Bartz and Galuf. Lenna then requests a ride, but Ferris just laughs and says he intends to hold her for ransom instead. Before taking them all captive, he notices that Lenna's pendant looks familiar. That night, Ferris wonders why Lenna's pendant matches his own. The next morning, he surprisingly orders the pirate crew to set sail for the Wind Shrine and to free the prisoners. After revealing his change of heart, he also explains that the ship can move by way of Syldra, a sea dragon he was raised with. When they arrive at the Wind Shrine, Tycoon's royal attendants warn that monsters have overtaken the shrine, and say that the king is still on the top floor. On the way there, the four adventurers are stopped by the Wing Raptor. After defeating it, they step inside the chamber to find the crystal shattered. From all around the world, the remaining crystals lend their strength to the four heroes. Ferris gains courage, the essence of flame. Lenna gains devotion, the essence of water. Galuf gains hope, the essence of earth. And Bartz gains passion, the essence of wind. King Tycoon mysteriously appears and says that the four adventurers are now the four warriors of light, and that they must stop the other three crystals from shattering. If they don't, he warns that an evil presence will awaken and return everything to darkness. As he fades out of existence, the 6 shattered pieces of the Wind Crystal give their power to the heroes, unlocking the jobs of Knight, Monk, Blue Mage, Thief, Black Mage, and White Mage. At the town of Tule, they run into Zoc, a friend of King Tycoon. Lenna requests passage through Torna Canal on the way to Walse, but Zoc says that a beast has occupied the canal and he lost the key. He offers to allow the adventurers to rest for the night in his home though, so they oblige. Bartz awakens in the middle of the night and reminisces about his past. When he was a young child, Bart's now deceased father Dorgan was once tasked with protecting the crystals as well, and told Bart's mother Stella to never tell Bart about the crystals if something should happen to him. The next morning, Ferris informs the pirate crew that he intends to leave them to join his 3 new friends. While they are shocked, they agree to guard the pirate hideout while he's away. The party sets off on the ship, but are drawn into a giant whirlpool. Inside they are attacked by the sea creature Karlabos. Once defeated, the ship avoids being sucked inside, but the monster manages to drag Syldra down with it. With the ship adrift, the Warriors of Light awaken to find themselves in the Graveyard of the Sea, a gathering place for abandoned ships. The adventurers fight their way past the undead creatures within and reach a room to rest for a while. Bart starts a fire to dry off the party's wet clothing, but Ferris refuses to dry off with them. When Galuf and Bart try to drag him toward the fire, they discover that Ferris is actually a female. Ferris admits that this is true, revealing that living as a man has allowed her to fit into the pirate lifestyle better. She warns the party not to make fun of her for it, and decides to turn in for the night. Deeper in the abandoned ship graveyard, Bart's mother Stella and Lenna's father, King Tycoon, suddenly appear. Stella then hypnotizes Bart, and the king hypnotizes both Lenna and Ferris. A young girl calling Galuf Grandpa appears as well, but the old man can't remember her. The same spell fails to entrap Galuf, so the evil siren appears and insists on stealing his soul as well. Galuf refuses the monster and shakes the other 3 loose from the trance. The siren then attacks the party, but they manage to defeat it, and everyone thanks Galuf for saving them. Now out of the Graveyard of the Sea, they find themselves in the village of Carwin, where they learn that the kingdom of Walse is south and beyond the sea, and that a machine is used to amplify the power of the water crystal there. Without Syldra though, they aren't able to sail in that direction. They also learn that a dragon was recently flying around the nearby North Mountain. Suspecting it might be King Tycoon's Windrake Hiryu, the 4 heroes decide to check it out, realizing the Windrake would allow them to fly to Castle Walse. At North Mountain, the 4 find King Tycoon's helmet lying on the ground. Lenna walks over to it, but is struck by a poisonous arrow right as she reaches for it. It turns out to be the work of Magisa, a poacher who intends to take the Windrake for herself. A chasm prevents Bart and the others from helping Lenna, and Ferris attempts to leap over the gap but falls into it. She unexpectedly climbs back up, creates a rope bridge for her friends, and Lenna is saved. They're attacked by Magisa, but they are able to overcome her and her husband Forza. At the top of the mountain, they find the wounded Hiryu. Lenna picks some dragon grass growing nearby and has it fed to the Windrake, restoring it to proper health. They all hop on board Hiryu and fly to Castle Walse, where they warn the king that amplifying the power of the water crystal will cause it to shatter. King Walse refuses to stop doing so, claiming it would mean the end of his people's recent prosperity. Suddenly, the earth begins to rumble and a giant meteorite falls out of the sky. It lands near the Tower of Walse, where the crystal is located, so the king scrambles to head there. Bart and his friends decide to follow him and make their way to the top. There they witness the king's guard thrown to the ground by the mind-controlled creature Garula. It attacks the Warriors of Light, but they manage to defeat him in battle. As they approach the crystal though, it emits light and shatters right in front of them. With his last breath, the dying guard recognizes Galuf and tells him to protect the fire crystal. Galuf asks him about his past, but the guard dies before he can answer. The shards of the water crystal lend their powers to the heroes, and they unlock the jobs of Time Mage, Berserker, Red Mage, Summoner, and Mystic Knight. One shard remains in the room, but the tower begins to shake. The land around it crumbles, and the entire tower sinks deep into the ocean. The adventurers are saved from drowning by Syldra, who swallows the party and brings them to the coast. However, the sea dragon is mortally wounded, and used her last strength to save the party. She swims off to die in peace, and Ferris breaks down in tears. They all head into the nearby meteorite, where they find a mysterious portal. The heroes step inside and are transported by a magical force to the location of another meteorite that crashed near the kingdom of Karnak, where the fire crystal is located. When they enter the town of Karnak, they learn that the queen has recently built a wall to keep scholars from the Library of Ancients from warning against amplifying the power of the fire crystal. In a shop, a villager tips off guards, who have the Warriors of Light arrested because they emerged from the meteorite, just like a werewolf that attacked recently. They are thrown into the castle jail, where the prisoner in the adjacent cell uses gunpowder to blow a hole in the wall. They are surprised to discover that it's actually Cid, who admits it was he who created the controversial crystal amplification device. He learned how to build the machine from a tome he found at the Library of Ancients, but after he began using it, he realized that the prosperity it gave the people came at the cost of weakening the crystals to the point of shattering. In an attempt to reverse the process, he actually tried to shut down the machine in time to save the fire crystal, but he was discovered by the Queen of Karnak and imprisoned for doing so. The Warriors of Light reveal that they hold the crystal shards, which surprises Cid. Before they can explain though, the Chancellor arrives, saying that the fire crystal has cracked. Karnak's ministers have managed to shut down the amplification device, but Cid's help is needed to decrease the crystal's energy output. Cid says this must be because the fire-powered ship is leeching power from the crystal, so the heroes agree to help him and they all head there. Flames have consumed the entire castle, but they eventually reach the ship. Cid warns that the fire crystal will shatter if they can't stop the ship's engine, which is draining its power. The adventurers head inside and eventually they reach the engine room. Inside, they are surprised to find the Queen of Karnak, who seems to be possessed by a magical force. She uses her power to summon liquid flame, but the Warriors of Light take it down. However, this destroys the engine and the Queen collapses. She says she was under the control of an evil force that is trying to drain the power of the crystals to resurrect itself. She pleads the heroes to save the fire crystal, so they head through the pipe and into its chamber. There they find Werewolf, who breaks into the room and is relieved to see that the crystal is still intact. He recognizes Galuf, but before Galuf receives an explanation, a possessed soldier enters the room. He flicks a switch on the wall, which will amplify the power again. As he transports himself away, he boasts that 3 crystals are now destroyed, leaving 1 left until some kind of seal is broken. The device's pipes begin to connect to the crystal, but Werewolf stands in front of them, telling Galuf and his friends to escape and save the Earth Crystal. As they fall into a pit, the chamber bursts into flames, the crystal shatters, and Werewolf is burned to a crisp. When the Warriors of Light enter inside again, the shards are on the ground. With the crystal destroyed, the castle will soon explode, so they all run out as fast as they can. They manage to make it out just before the entire castle explodes, flinging the crystal shards onto the ground in front of them. Reaching out to grab them, they unlock the jobs of Beastmaster, Geomancer, and Ninja. Bartz and his friends find Cid sulking in the local tavern. They reassure him that the destruction of the crystal wasn't his fault, but he insists on being left alone. The wall blocking the way to the ancient castle was destroyed in the explosion, so they pass through on the way there. The scholars there are in a panic because Cid's grandson, Mid, has gone missing while looking for a book, and monsters have overrun the basement. The Warriors of Light decide to check things out, so they head inside and fight their way past the monsters within. Eventually they find Mid, who is standing in front of a shelf. Before they can walk up to him though, they're attacked by Byblos, a creature created by possessed tomes. After he is defeated, the heroes realize Mid was just reading and is in no danger. It turns out he has found a book that reveals how to get the fire-powered ship moving without the power of the crystals. Mid wishes to tell his grandfather Cid about it, so he rushes out of the library after learning Cid has become depressed. Back in Karnak, Mid convinces Cid to snap out of his misery. Cid now agrees to help protect the Earth Crystal, so he and Mid work together to upgrade the fire-powered ship. While the improvements are being made, Cid and Mid's familial bond also causes Galuf to remember pieces of his past, including the fact that he knows a young girl named Kryle. He also recalls that he came from another world on a meteorite, and that he helped seal away an ancient evil 30 years ago that is beginning to awaken again. At last he recalls the evil force's name, the dark warlock Exdeath, who will be revived if the last crystal is destroyed. With the ship ready to go, Sid and Mid head back to the ancient library to gather clues, and the heroes sail away without the power of the wind to Crescent Island. Right as they get there though, an earthquake causes a whirlpool to form, and the fire-powered ship is swallowed into the ocean. They wander into the forest nearby, where they see an ultra-rare black chocobo that can fly. Bartz manages to catch it, and the heroes realize it actually swallowed 2 shards from the fire crystal, so they pick them up and gain the jobs of Bard and Ranger. Now able to fly, the black chocobo brings the adventurers to Lix, Bart's hometown. While he's there, he recalls a memory from his past as he opens his old music box. One evening as Bart's laid in bed as a child, Bart's mother Stella collapsed in their home and died, as Bart's father Dorgan prepared to leave home and go on an adventure. At night, Bart steps out of the inn to visit his mother's grave, and when Ferris comes to see him, he reveals that his father died 3 years ago as well. Ferris says she wonders what it's like to have a father, but doesn't divulge any details about her own past. Bartz and his friends return to the ancient library, where they tell Sid and Mid the news about the loss of the fire-powered ship. Sid and Mid aren't concerned about this because they can just build a new one. They also relay the news that Lenna's father, King Tycoon, has recently been in Karnak and was seen entering the Desert of Shifting Sands. Traveling to the area, Sid and Mid provide a way to circumvent the quicksand. They use a bell to call the Sandworm, then use the tunnel it created to pass through the desert. They eventually reach the town of Ruin, where the party catches glimpses of King Tycoon. They track him down to the structure of a building, but just as Lenna calls out to him, they all fall through a pit trap. Now in an ancient dungeon, Lenna and Ferris embrace, both realizing that they are actually sisters and heirs to Tycoon Castle. Ferris apologizes to Lenna, saying that she was never certain about it until now. They all pass through the mysterious dungeon, which is full of ancient machinery, and eventually reach a platform. When they step onto it, it teleports them beneath the surface of Crescent Island. Sid and Mid venture to the black chocobo forest above ground, while Bartz and his friends use a switch on the wall to create a pit beneath them. As they discover, the fire-powered ship that was swallowed by the whirlpool is docked here, as is an ancient ship equipped with propellers. Sid and Mid drop down from overhead, and they all realize that the area they are in is called Catapult, and that it was created by the ancients. Sid goes into the ship with propellers and puts his engineering skill to use, raising the airship from the bunker and into the sky. Just as they lift off though, the ship rumbles as a monster latches itself onto the ship's hull. After disposing of Crayclaw, they lower the ship down into the bunker again. Sid and Mid decide to use the parts from the fire-powered ship to repair the damage to the airship, and they all decide to find out more information about the location of the Earth Crystal. While flying in the airship, they observe the ruins of an ancient fortress rise out of the desert and into the sky. Mid says the Earth Crystal resides within the giant fortress, which was created by ancient Ronkins who used its power to make it float. However, because the amplification has been turned back on somehow, the crystal will shatter if they can't save it in time. At the moment, there's no way to bring the airship high enough in the sky to enter, but Mid says that if the group can find some Adamantite, the ship can be upgraded to do just that. Galuf remembers that the meteorite he came on had Adamantite within it, so they head there to collect it. Inside the meteorite, they're able to retrieve the Adamantite, but not before defeating the tortoise-like creature Adamantoise. They bring the Adamantite back to Sid and Mid, and are now able to soar high enough to enter the flying Ronka Ruins. After defeating the weaponry on the outside of the fortress, they make their way through the ruins within. Inside, they eventually find King Tycoon, who says there's no time for chatter because the Guardian of the Ruins stands before them. The Warriors of Light manage to defeat it, but King Tycoon just runs off again before Lenna and Ferris can talk to him. In the Crystal Chamber, Bartz and his friends realize that the King's behavior must mean he's being controlled by something. Shockingly, the King then says he intends to destroy all the heroes while they're standing together. Before he can do anything though, a meteorite falls down from the sky, crashing right into the flying ruins. A young girl bursts through the door, using a spell to incapacitate King Tycoon, saving them all. When she calls Galuf Grandpa, he stops to think and realizes that it's his granddaughter Kryle, and finally regains all of his lost memories. When the king regains consciousness, he acknowledges the presence of Lenna and Ferris, whose real name is Sarisa. There's little time for a reunion though, as the crystal suddenly glows and shatters. Its shards fall to the ground, and the seal on the dark warlock Exdeath is broken. Now released, he appears before them all, and uses the power of the fragments to knock Bartz to the ground. Before teleporting away, he boasts that the crystals have been destroyed, and also something about Galuf's world being next. King Tycoon urges the party to resist Exdeath and stop the world from disappearing. Calling forth the light of the earth, he manages to stop the shards from attacking everyone, but takes on the brunt of their attacks in the process. Now mortally wounded, he apologizes for not being a better father to Sarisa, and dies in front of everyone. Despite their loss, the shards grant them the jobs of samurai, dragoon, dancer, and chemist. Without the crystal to animate it, the Ronka Ruins starts to shake, so the party rushes out. With Ferris piloting the airship, they manage to make it out in the nick of time. The entire structure explodes and crashes into the ground. As they reflect about what happened, Galuf reveals that Exdeath is originally from his own world and came to destroy the crystals 30 years ago in this one. As one of the 4 Dawn Warriors, Galuf managed to seal him away until now. The reason Galuf traveled to this world again was because his people detected something ominous happening with the crystals. He laments that Exdeath is now free and has returned to his own world. In fact, he regrets not dragging him there 30 years ago and sealing him there instead. Galuf and Kryle decide to head back to their world on Kryle's meteorite, determined to seal Exdeath away again. Bartz and his friends offer to go too, but Galuf turns them down because it would mean they would never be able to return to their own world again. Saying goodbye, Galuf and Kryle step into the meteorite and launch themselves away. Still determined to help Galuf and Kryle, the Warriors of Light find Sid and Mid in another meteorite. Sid discovers that meteorites can absorb the power of Adamantite for fuel, so the party places it in each remaining one. The result is the creation of a warp point at the intersection of all 4 of them, so the heroes head there. Despite the risk of it being a one-way trip, Bartz and his friends jump into it. The energy coalesces around them and flings them all into the air, and they land on an island in Galuf's world. Without transportation, they decide to camp for the night. As they sit around the campfire though, they are ambushed by monsters and carried off to Exdeath's castle. Now locked in a cell, Exdeath himself comes to taunt them. One of his monster underlings also reports that Galuf's army is poised to attack at Big Bridge, where the world's mainland and western continent connect. Exdeath activates the Giant Mirror, a device that projects images of Bartz, Lenna, and Ferris in the sky above Big Bridge. Now realizing his friends are in danger, Galuf orders his forces to fall back. Within Exdeath's castle, Exdeath orders his subordinate Gilgamesh to watch the Warriors of Light so they don't interfere with his plans. Galuf insists on using Kryle's Windrake to help the beleaguered heroes. Flying across Big Bridge, he lands on Exdeath's castle. After collecting the party's items and crystal shards, he makes his way to the dungeon, but is stopped by Gilgamesh. Galuf eventually manages to overpower the foe, and Gilgamesh runs away. Unlocking the door, he reunites with his 3 friends and they all head back to Big Bridge. They fight their way past Exdeath's minions, but find Gilgamesh standing in the way. They beat him in a grueling battle, but he escapes again. Exdeath unveils a giant magical barrier around his castle, which expands to the point of knocking the 4 Warriors of Light off Big Bridge, while Kryle is left behind. They awaken in the barren lands of Gloceana, which is crawling with monsters. The adventurers enter the nearby Moogle forest, where they immediately spot a rare Moogle creature. It falls into a pit, so they jump inside in an attempt to help it. Now in the underground waterway, they catch up with it, realizing it's being threatened by a monster called Tyrannosaur. After defeating it, the Moogle leads them to the hidden Moogle village. The Moogle they save thanks them by communicating with the Moogle in Ball Castle, revealing their location to Cryle. Using the Windrake, Cryle flies to their location. They all hop on board and fly to the castle, where Bartz and the others are surprised to learn that Galuf is actually the king. The party also discovers that the Windrake they flew in on pushed itself too far and will soon die unless some dragon grass can be found to heal it. They set their sights on Drakenvale, the Valley of the Windrakes, in hopes of finding some. To reach the area, they have to pass through the werewolf town of Quelb. When they get there, they meet Xygor, a werewolf who is also one of the 4 Dawn Warriors alongside Galuf. However, Xygor is suspicious of Bartz, believing he destroyed the crystals and brought Exdeath back intentionally. Galuf assures him that isn't the case, but Xygor is determined to fight Bartz in a duel anyway. Bartz sees through his lupine attack and knocks Xygor to the ground. When he says he learned the trick from his father, Dorgan, Xygor is surprised. He reveals that Dorgan was also one of the Dawn Warriors, shocking Bartz because it means he was actually from Galuf's world. 30 years in the past, Dorgan actually opposed sealing Exdeath in another world. Dorgan chose to stay behind when the other Dawn Warriors returned, in order to watch over Exdeath's seal. Now with Xygor's blessing, they pass through the gate to the north and into Drakenvale, where they find the dragon grass, but it's actually turned into a monster called Dragonpod. After defeating it, they collect the dragon grass and bring it back to heal the Windrake. However, Cryle becomes bedridden with sickness. She says she hears calls from Ghido, a sage over 700 years old who predicted the crystals would shatter. Figuring he may hold the key to defeat Exdeath, the group decides to pay him a visit by way of the newly healed Windrake. Landing on his island, the group is alarmed to feel the earth quaking. The island breaks apart completely, and it becomes clear that Exdeath was responsible. Without other guidance, the Warriors of Light decide to pay a visit to the last Dawn Warrior, Xezat, at his residence in Surgate Castle. When they get there though, they learn that he's actually busy leading a naval fleet with the hopes of breaking into Exdeath's castle. The heroes use the Windrake to fly to his fleet and are greeted by Xezat. Galuf introduces his friends and points out the fact that Bartz is Dorgan's son. Xezat implies he has a plan to get into Exdeath's castle, but says to rest for now. Unfortunately, their rest is interrupted by the arrival of monsters. The adventurers head to the deck, where the crew is overwhelmed. After defeating them, they realize Gilgamesh is the culprit and go to battle with him on the ship's bow. This time he brings along his friend Enkidu, but the party takes them down. Gilgamesh manages to run away yet again, and the Windrake scoops Galuf up just before he falls into the water. Xezat reveals that his fleet is actually a decoy, and that his true plan is to use a submarine to sneak into Exdeath's barrier tower from the ocean depths. Making their way there, Xezat says he will cut the power to the generator downstairs, and asks the Warriors of Light to destroy the antenna on the top floor. He also gives them Whisperweed, which allows them to communicate with each other. Xezat makes it to the basement and shuts down the power, but as the heroes approach the antenna, they're halted by a creature called Atomos. After bringing it down, they succeed in destroying the antenna. However, the generator in the basement unexpectedly overloads, trapping Xezat within the room. He implores the party to hurry and escape the tower before everything is blown to smithereens. Galuf intends to rescue Xezat, but is talked out of it by Bartz. Xezat admits that he knew the task was risky, but wasn't willing to send the Warriors of Light to their deaths. The tower completely explodes, killing Xezat, but Bartz and his friends make it out on the Windrake. Despite their sadness, the mission is ultimately a success, and the barrier around Exdeath's castle dissipates. Now with the submarine, the Warriors of Light decide to travel to Ghido's sunken cave to meet up with the sage. They come across a turtle dwelling inside and are shocked to learn that it is actually Ghido. He says that Exdeath is actually an ancient tree from the Forest of Moor, and was transformed into the Dark Warlock 500 years in the past by the concentration of malevolence there. Ghido says it was he who maintained the seal on him for 500 years until it was broken. However, the fact that he has broken the seal twice since then has led Ghido to believe Exdeath must be destroyed this time. He advises the adventurers to go to the Forest of Moor because Exdeath is searching for something there, but Ghido can't pinpoint exactly what it is. He gives Bartz and his friends the Guardian Branch, which allows them to enter the forest. They make it through the entry, but after wandering around in the woods, they're thrown to the ground. Suddenly, the entire forest is consumed by a giant fire, and they figure that Exdeath is behind it. A Moogle appears, leading them into a pit to escape the blaze. When the flames die down, the entire forest is completely burned, but they still manage to find the Guardian Tree. When they approach it, the Guardian Branch flies into the air, opening a hole inside. Within, they see 4 shining objects, which pull themselves toward the party and attack, but the heroes defeat them. After the battle, Exdeath appears. As it turns out, the Warriors of Light have been tricked into attacking the 4 seals, revealing crystals that previously limited Exdeath's power. Now in control of the crystals, Exdeath uses their power to disable the party, and they are pushed backward without being able to move. Sensing that Galuf is in danger, Kryl uses the Windrake to fly to the Forest of Moor. She enters the Guardian Tree, using her own magic to knock Exdeath to the ground. However, he regains his footing and traps Kryl within a magical field, flinging her into the wall while he continues to use the crystals against the party. With all of his strength, Galuf resists the beams, freeing himself, pushing Kryl out of danger, and fighting Exdeath alone. As they fight, Exdeath says all the anger and hatred in existence isn't enough to defeat him. Fighting with everything he has left, Galuf says it isn't anger or hatred that drives him. Falling to the ground, Exdeath manages to absorb the power of the remaining 3 crystals and makes an escape. When the heroes awaken, they rush to help Galuf, but it's too late. With his last words, Galuf begs the others to destroy Exdeath. Kryl is frantic, but nothing they do can save him, and he fades away. In her moment of loss, Kryl is drawn outside of the Guardian Tree by her grandfather's voice. Galuf says the ancient tree is allowing him to communicate with her, so he encourages her to be strong. To assist her, he also bestows all of his own abilities to her. She feels his warmth and now takes his place as a warrior of light. Determined to confront Exdeath, they head to his castle. Inside, crippled soldiers say Exdeath is on the top floor, and they couldn't do anything to stop him. Trapped at a dead end, Kryl says everything within the area is an illusion created by Exdeath, and seeks advice from her grandfather's spirit. Meanwhile in Quelb, Xygor lies in bed, realizing that Galuf has recently passed. Just as he says he'll soon die as well, the spirit of Galuf pays him a visit. He pleads him to help Kryl, and with the last of his strength, Xygor tears down Exdeath's illusion. As he does, the true surroundings of Exdeath's castle are now visible, and the party can progress deeper. They soon run into Gilgamesh in front of an empty treasure chest, and go to battle with him once more. He transforms into a stronger form this time, but Exdeath's voice announces he'll banish Gilgamesh for all of his bungling. Despite Gilgamesh's protest, Exdeath casts the mischievous weapons master into the void. On the 13th floor, they find Exdeath waiting for them. As they approach him, Exdeath insists that they don't interfere with his plans. He then reveals that he aspires to return the Earth to how it used to be. The heroes take this to mean he'll turn it into a world full of evil, and he responds that they are too foolish to understand his true motives. He attacks the party, but the Warriors of Light prevail and Exdeath is defeated. However, in the process, the 3 crystals Exdeath took from the Guardian Tree shatter in front of them. Everything seems to disappear around them, and when they regain their senses, they find themselves near Tycoon Castle. When they go to the castle, they realize that they are in fact back in their own world, and the Chancellor prepares to throw a banquet in honor of Princess Ceresa's return. Ferris makes an appearance in royal attire, and during the festivities, Bartz and Kryl wonder how they could have been returned to their world so abruptly like this. The two pay a visit to Boko, who now has a chocobo family of his own. Nevertheless, he agrees to give Bartz and Kryl a ride. In the process, they fall down a pit and Bartz gets upset. They're attacked by a creature called Antlion, but the two adventurers slay it. Afterward, they're saved by a rope dropped into the cavern by Ferris, who came looking for them. She's irritated they left without her, but agrees to rejoin the party. Before they leave, Kryl says she got a splinter, but not to worry about it. The three heroes return to Ghido, who explains that Exdeath has in fact managed to merge the two worlds together. The sage explains that Bart's and Kryl's worlds were actually one and the same 1,000 years ago, but were split apart at one point to stop a dark force called the Void, which was created by an evil presence called Enuo. The people of the world managed to defeat Enuo with 12 legendary weapons, but could not eliminate the Void. Ultimately, the people split the crystals in two, which eliminated the threat of the Void, but also split the world in two as well. With the 4 crystals gone, the power of the elements will never return, and they realize Exdeath was actually telling the truth. Just then, the splinter Kryl was carrying detaches from her body, and Exdeath emerges from it. He says he wants to take the power of the Void for his own purposes, and that's why he merged the two worlds together. Suddenly, the earth shakes, and the Void appears around Tycoon Castle. The Warriors of Light protest, but Exdeath uses his magic to strike them down. Nothing can stop the Void from consuming the castle with Lenna inside, and a giant hole is left behind. As Exdeath prepares to finish the heroes off, Ghido swoops in to stop him. The two exchange blows for a while, but Exdeath unleashes a giant wave of energy that hurls everyone out of the cave. Now in an empty field, Ghido spots the Library of Ancients in the distance, surprising him immensely because in his world it's only a legend. He says that it holds a book that contains the key to defeating Exdeath, so they travel there. The scholars there greet Ghido and say they actually have the second half of the sealed tome ready for them. The ancient sage then leads a strategy meeting where he explains the threat of the combined world. He says the Warriors of Light must gather the 12 legendary weapons that helped defeat Enuo 1,000 years ago and bring them into the Rift of Dimension to destroy Exdeath. With the two parts of the sealed tome brought together, the location of the legendary weapons is revealed to be Castle Kuza. To break the seals on the weapons, however, they must find 4 tablets, each representing one of the 4 elements. In search of the Earth Tablet, the 3 adventurers head to the pyramid in the Desert of Shifting Sands. On the way there, they pass by the Guardian Tree, where they witness the regrowth of the forest, but lament the loss of Galuf. At the desert, they realize the sands have stopped shifting because the Earth Crystal has shattered. Inside the Pyramid of Mor, they reach the first tablet, and as they take it, the entire peninsula sinks into the sea, and the Dragon King Bahamut is awakened. While flying overhead, he says he'll be waiting for the party at the summit of North Mountain. As he passes by, their old airship drifts ashore. Back at the Guardian Tree, the Windrake Hiryu flies in and drops off Lenna. Unfortunately, it's revealed that she's been possessed by an evil force called Melusine, which was released when Tycoon Castle was swallowed by the Void. Now under the control of Exdeath, Lenna prepares to destroy the heroes. As she does so, Exdeath commands the Void to swallow the Library of Ancients with Ghido and the scholars inside of it. Before the possessed Lenna can terminate her friends, Hiryu swoops in to knock her down, sacrificing himself to detach the demon Melusine from her body. After the party defeats it in battle, Lenna returns to her senses again and rejoins the group. On their old airship, they realize that the hole where Castle Tycoon used to be is the entry to the Interdimensional Rift. Meanwhile, Exdeath attempts to command the Void to destroy everything. It then envelops many towns entirely while the Warriors of Light watch helplessly from the airship. The Void even takes out Bartz's hometown of Lix, and he becomes enraged. When things calm down, they go to the castle of Kuza and break the seals on 3 of the legendary weapons. Meanwhile, Exdeath has summoned prisoners of the Interdimensional Rift to stop the Warriors of Light from finding the remaining tablets. The Dark Warlock says he plans to obtain the full power of the Void while they do. The heroes head to the island shrine, defeating monsters within and finding the second tablet inside. Collecting it also unlocks the Fork Tower, the resting place of the most powerful white and black magic spells. Within, the party divides into two groups. After defeating the Minotaur, they obtain Holy, and after overcoming Omniscient, they obtain Flare. Immediately afterward, the entire tower disappears, and the entryway to Catapult is left in its place. Inside Catapult, the party is surprised to run into Sid in mid, who discovered an ancient engineering technique to give the airship the ability to transform into a submarine. The two work feverishly on the project, and Mid says that Sid still blames himself for the world ending up like this. With the project completed, the Warriors of Light use the submarine functionality to explore the ocean depths, and they enter the Great Sea Trench. Making their way through the underworld, they stumble upon the Dwarven Kingdom. As they approach the third tablet, three pig-like minions of Exdeath attack them, but the Warriors of Light prevail. Obtaining the third tablet, they also learn the spell Meteor. Within Istory Falls, the group obtains the fourth and final tablet. As they exit the area though, another of Exdeath's cronies stands in their way. Just as it prepares to attack the Warriors of Light, the giant Leviathan emerges from behind the waterfall and destroys it instantly. The legendary beast tests the might of the heroes, and when they defeat it, they gain it as a summon. Using the submarine, Bartz and his friends return to the Tower of Walse, which is now completely submerged in the ocean. Within, they find the last shard of the water crystal that was left behind. Before they can take it, the wild and unpredictable mime Gogo confronts them. Upon defeating him, they claim the job of Mime. Back at the Pirate's Hideout, Ferris reunites with the spirit of Syldra, who offers to lend her aid to the party. The creature's essence is then transformed into a summon. In Jackal Cave, they find a shiny object. Upon touching it, they are challenged by the legendary warlord Odin. When they vanquish him, they receive his power as a summon as well. On top of Phoenix Tower, they're all surprised to find Hiryu alive. With his last ounce of strength, he tosses himself off of the tower, engulfing himself in fire as he falls. In the process, he is transformed into Phoenix and lends his power to them as a summon. Overcome by sadness, the event reminds Lenna of when her mother died when she was only a child. Only the tongue of a Windrake could cure her mother's sickness, but Lenna chose to spare Hiryu because he was the last of his species and her mother cared deeply for him. Next, the Warriors of Light travel to North Mountain, where they take on Bahamut, the King of Dragons. Descending from the skies above, he attacks them with ferocity but is soon taken down. The party then claims his spirit as a summon. Now with all 4 tablets and the 12 legendary weapons, the Warriors of Light set course for the Interdimensional Rift to take on Exdeath. Sucked inside, they find themselves in a desert, but soon learn that the area is filled with every landmass and creature ever consumed by the Void. Fighting their way through ancient ruins, forests, caverns, castles, and even a town, they destroy several of Exdeath's strongest underlings in the process. Eventually, they manage to reach the inside of the Void. Standing in their way is Gilgamesh, who recognizes Bartz during the battle. He says he's gone mad in this dimension and seeks a way out, so the Warriors of Light point him in the right direction. Before he leaves, he surprisingly also offers to join them in future adventures and to be considered a friend. Farther along, they run into Necrophobe, a magician surrounded by barriers. In the middle of the fight, Gilgamesh suddenly appears, offering to lend his help to the party. After boasting of his power and engaging in small talk, he unleashes a self-destruct attack that kills himself, but also destroys Necrophobe in the process. When they finally reach Exdeath, the Dark Warlock says that the Warriors of Light are too late. He explains that he has already achieved total power over the universe and full control over the Void. He then morphs into a giant tree and says he will force them to watch their remaining friends be sucked inside. To demonstrate this, he unleashes its power upon all remaining habitable areas. Everyone in Ball Castle, the pirates, and Sid and Mid are among those lost. The Void then swallows Bartz and his friends as well. Within the Void, the party is surprised to see the Dawn Warriors, Dorgan, Xezat, Kelger, and Goluf, who say they will hold off the Void while the Warriors of Light battle Exdeath. With their assistance, the Void becomes unstable, allowing them to confront the villain. In addition, the King of Tycoon emerges from the Void as well, and everyone encourages the heroes to defeat the evil foe. Just when they manage to take down Exdeath in his tree form, the Void surprisingly consumes him as well. The Dark Force changes forms to Neo Exdeath and declares an intention to return all memories, dimensions, and existence to nothingness. The wicked mutation puts up a fight, but the Warriors of Light are able to use the power of the crystals to annihilate him. Neo Exdeath disintegrates, but the party still seems to be trapped inside the Void. However, the 4 elemental essences spring forth from the heroes, and manifest into new crystals exactly where the old ones used to be. With the crystals shining bright again, an ancient prophecy is fulfilled, and the world is returned to its proper form. In addition, all of the locations and people sucked into the Void are restored. The Dawn Warriors and King Tycoon also appear again and thank the Warriors of Light for their courage. They say the world still needs Bartz and his friends though, so they should return to the world they saved. Kryle's Windrake reappears and flies them back to Ball Castle. Lenna and Ferris take their places as the rulers of Tycoon Castle, but Ferris still isn't suited to the lifestyle. Longing for her old ways, she decides to return to the pirate life. Bartz decides to go back to a life of traveling, but returns to his hometown of Lix before he sets out again. Boko and his wife Coco's chocobo chicks have also hatched. Upon their return from the Void, Kryle writes a letter to Sid and Mid, telling them about their adventure together. She decides to travel the world and enjoys the newfound peace. Ball has no designated heir to the throne, and Kryle wonders what it would be like to be queen. After reading the letter, Sid and Mid congratulate the Warriors of Light on a job well done. 1 year after restoring the world, Kryle returns to Galuf's resting place at the Guardian Tree, and is still sad about her grandfather's loss. As she thinks of him, Bartz, Lenna, and Ferris arrive to console her. They promise her she's not alone in the world, and she sheds a tear of happiness. Now that the crystals have regained their power, the Warriors of Light commit to protecting them again, and they set out together as the wind blows, the water ripples, the fire crackles, and the earth shifts. But now I want to hear from you. Out of all of Final Fantasy V's amazing moments, which was your favorite? And how do you think Final Fantasy V stacks up against the stories of the other Final Fantasy games? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe to my channel for more retro RPG content and storyline summaries like this one. And if you enjoyed this video and want early access to videos like it and other perks, please consider supporting my channel by becoming a Patreon patron or a YouTube member.